In the last video, we looked at briefly at the meaning of three ideologies, that is liberalism, socialism, and nationalism. And we said that they were modernist ideologies. And in this video I want to look at this very term, modernism. So if we want to understand what modernism is or what modernity is, there are three similar terms which are used in this context. Modernity, modernism, and modernization. Now, all these three terms are defined slightly different by different authors, different traditions, depending on their viewpoint, their perspective of what they're trying to establish. Modernity is generally, but I believe that we can, as long as we define terms properly and stick to them, there's no problem. Stick to our definition, there's no problem which term we are using. But generally, modernism deals with specific or particular theories which are modernist in characteristics. On the other hand, modernization is more to do with how to make a country a modern country through development and through building institutions. On the other hand, the term modernity, which I'm going to use here, refers to a particular period in history. Now, there are other meanings of modernity. For example, modernity, you can distinguish between modernity as a specific period or discourse about that period. And we can also distinguish between modernity as a project. That's the term which Habermas, for example, uses, modernity as a project. So I'm not going to focus on this at this point, and also I'm not going to focus on modernity as a discourse about modern period. I'm rather going to try to understand the period which is referred to as modernity, or the rise of the modern world or modern civilization, and how to understand that specific period, which I believe is still with us. Okay, now modernity in this sense refers to a specific period in world history. You can date, various people have dated it differently, but you can roughly start dating it from 16th, 17th century, and I think it's still with us, the period. Now, how to understand that period, how to understand and how to distinguish it from the previous periods. That's the task which we want to start in this video. Okay. Now, when we try to understand what modernity is, we should distinguish between a banal use of modernity in which every present is modern or newer than what goes before it. So we are not using modernity in this banal sense. And if we are not using it in this banal sense, so what sense we are using it? In my view, we can understand modernity as a revolutionary period in Northwest European history, specifically Britain, France, and Germany. But Britain is the center of this revolution. So modernity can be understood as a revolution. Okay. Revolution in what? We can understand revolution as a total change or total transformation, but you can limit revolution to either specific sectors. So you can have revolution in economy, you can have revolution in social and cultural arena, you can revolution in political and institutional arena. But we are talking about total revolution in the sense that it's revolution in all human relations and human institution. In other words, it's a civilisational revolution. Now, whenever we talk about revolution, we should distinguish between two things. Whenever we talk about total revolution, whenever we talk about transformation, total transformation, we should differentiate between two aspects of it. An event of revolution, on the other hand, long changes. What analysis school historians call longue durée. So every revolution is a combination of changes which have been happening. So long changes which happen over centuries. And then those changes come to a fruition of sort in certain events. which we specifically relate to a revolution. So, for example, if you look at Russian Revolution, we'll see that there has been a lot of changes happening in Russian society, institutions, culture, from 19th century on, but the actual event of revolution happened in a few time, but the one we are more concerned with in 1917. Similarly, if we look at Iran, we had a revolution there in 1979. But if we look at the history, the changes which culminated in the event of 1979 can be traced back to 19th and 20th century and different movements within it. And they are not always linear, and there is no guarantee that those changes, long changes which happen in society, will culminate in a revolution necessarily. But whenever there is a revolution, it is reasonable to think that there has been changes happening in different institutions, different aspects of society for a long time, for whatever reasons. That's a different topic. And then those changes culminated in a particular event which we generally know or refer to as revolutions. For example, if we look at the specific context of modernity, you can say that there are certain events which we associate with that transformation or revolution. For example, first of them is Protestantism or Reformation. I mean, you can go back even, but Protestantism is an event which sort of flags, an event which flags to us that certain drastic or fundamental changes have been happening in certain aspects of society. In this context, the religious thought. On the other hand, we have scientific revolution, and we have different events related to that. We have industrial revolution, we have the glorious revolution in England. Then we have the emergence of, we have capitalism, etc. These are all events, in a sense, which sort of flag to us that something fundamental is happening in a society. And all these events were a culmination of long changes and processes in different aspects of society. So revolution itself, modernity, as I see it, so these are events, Protestant, and there has been long standing transformation which has been happening in European society. But modernity itself is a revolution which is a revolution and rupture, in the sense that what was before it and what came after it is totally different in its overall constitution. You can have similar elements, but overall society, overall institutions, they are different. And the change which happens we can refer to it as a civilisational change. Civilisational change. In the sense that before modernity we have Christian civilization. Civilization in the sense that not just a Christian religion, but Christian civilization in the sense that social, individual, and political, epistemological, metaphysical constitution of society is informed by Christian values, Christian ideals, the way people form their conception of self, the way they relate to each other, the way they relate to nature, the way they relate to universe, the way their political system is formed, the way their educational system is formed. It is informed by Christian values. In that sense, it is a Christian civilization. And what happened is modernity is a revolution through which Christian civilization in Europe was overthrown, transformed into a modern civilization, which, depending on your viewpoint, you can call it secular civilization, you can call it capitalist civilization, you can give many other names, but what can be safely said is that you have a new civilization, and that civilization, although the transformation happened 200 years ago, but and it was associated with certain event, the long-term changes are still with us, and the new civilization is still developing, and there are elements of old civilization is still there, even though they are not dominant. That's why we talk about revolution, but that doesn't mean that they are totally gone. So if we say it is a civilizational change, then we can't just refer this change to rejection of religion, because civilization is more than religion. Civilization is more than religion. Civilization is basically encompass the whole life. So we can still have a Christian religion in modernity, but what cannot happen is that it is a Christian civilization, because you can't have two civilizations ruling the same space. That's the main thing. So modernity means that we have a civilizational change, we have transformation of Europe from a Christian civilization to a modern capitalistic civilization. So that's what I understand by modernity. And there are two aspects to it which I'll just introduce, and then I'll stop, and we will continue this in the next video. When we talk about modernity, we should, again, in the same way we looked at the concept of freedom, we should look at negative aspects of modernity and positive aspects. So negative aspect of modernity is to destroy all the aspects of Christian civilization which can be hindrance to the development of a new civilization. So negative aspects of modernity is destruction of previous civilization, its institutions, and positive modernity is to build new institution, to build new conception of self, to build new conception of relation. So negative modernity doesn't mean, and the purpose of negative modernity is to destroy Christian civilization, but that doesn't mean you have a single positive conception of modernity. You can have various competing, sometimes compatible, sometimes incompatible visions of what will come after. So different forces might be joined in destroying what was the existing civilization, but they might actually disagree with each other on what to build in its place, and that's very common with all revolutions. The second thing is, when you destroy civilization, that means that the way different institution, different viewpoint, different structures, different conception of self, that's what you're destroying. But it doesn't mean that when you're building new positive worldview, you're not going to use elements of the previous civilization in building your own institution. Elements of one civilization taken apart from the system as a whole can be used in a new system. We don't have too many new things in terms of elements when we try to build new civilization. Every civilization uses various institutions, even different discrete elements of the previous civilization when it's building its new structure and new institution. It's different from previous in its overall construction, its overall constitution, its overall ethos, its overall destination, its overall telos. But they can still use elements of previous civilization, even institutions of previous civilization, for new purposes, for new civilization. So that's what I want to say for now, and I mean there's a lot more to discuss, but here I want to stop and take a stock of what we have already done in this video, which is that by modernity I mean a civilization which started coming into existence in Northern Europe, Northwestern Europe, around 16th and 17th century, and to replace the Christian civilization, and it replace it by this new civilization which we call modern civilization, which, depending on your viewpoint, can be conceived either as a capitalist civilization or secular civilization or liberal civilization or democratic civilization. So that's what modernity is. And I'll stop here and see if there is any question. I'll continue this in the next video.